I tell you, I am so happy to be here. Every time I do one of these AAPS workshops, I'm so enthused by all the previous talks, and I thought they were fantastic. I'm just going to go through my history a little bit. Dr. Ameling went through it a little bit. After my residency and my fellowship in neurotology and skull-base surgery, I was an associate professor at Tulane Medical School. And there I did academic medicine, completely insulated from all the economic aspects of medicine and completely clueless. For a variety of reasons, in the year 2000, I left and went into private practice with my current partner, Dr. Jim Swallow, who's somewhere here in the crowd today. I don't see him. I think he left when he saw me coming up here, I guess. Anyway, and at that point, we formed a private practice, and he came to me and said, you really, some of these insurance plans you're on are just horrible, and there was this one particular case I remember. I did a skull-base resection of a glomus tumor. And if any of you guys know about skull-base glomuses, it can be a 12-hour surgery, patients in the ICU for 5-6 days. You got the 90-day global. You have to take care of these folks, multiple problems with them. Mississippi Medicaid, I got paid $500 for it, okay? I'm not sure that covered the malpractice portion of the case, And at the same time, too, I come home after this, and I have to get the plumber to fix my house, and he comes with his assistant, and in half an hour, they're leaving with $500. Something was wrong here. Anyway, so in the year 2001, my partner and I received 2 different letters. The first one was Medicare, and they were going to reduce the reimbursement for ENGs, okay? ENG is one of our workhorse tests for working up dizzy patients, which is a large part of our practice. And the problem was they were reducing the cost, the reimbursement, to lower than what it cost us to do the test. So the question was, that can't work. So either we have to get rid of Medicare and just do the test like we know it has to be done, or the other option is we could cut back on what's done in the test, i.e. make the candy bars smaller. We decided to get rid of Medicare at the time. The other thing was my partner got a letter from Medicare saying, gee, you're an ENT doctor and you do too many ENG tests. Okay. The implication is you must be defrauding us. Now, they didn't look at the fact that all he did was take care of dizzy patients. They didn't look at the fact that he didn't do any septoplasmies or laryngoscopies or anything else. All they saw was what they did more of. Okay. So at that point, it kind of bothered him. He said, we don't need Medicare, so we got rid of it. Gradually, from 2002 to 2004, we got rid of one plan here, one plan there, and then eventually in 2005, we got rid of our last plan. I don't know if y'all remember, but in 2005, that was when we had this little storm down here in southern Louisiana called Katrina. And at the time, the governor enacted this retroactive emergency insurance plan, which basically said if the patient didn't pay their premium, the insurance company couldn't kick them off the plan. But they didn't have to pay the doctor. So we said, this is a good time to get rid of the last one, so we got rid of it. Our current situation, and this has been going on 10 years now, we're 100% cash. We are HIPAA non-compliant. It does not apply to us. We are non-compliant with meaningful use. We do not do PQRS. I had to get an MPI number for my patients to get tests done. Okay, but I've lost track of all the darn alphabet soup things you guys have to keep up with. I don't keep up with any of them, is the bottom line. I just practice medicine. Do y'all know this guy? Wayne Gretzky, okay, most famous, greatest hockey player of all time. He made one interesting quote, skate where the puck's going, not where it's been, okay? I put this up back in the first time I gave this talk in 2009. I was telling people, look, you got to get out of this. This is going the wrong way. You're all going where the puck's been, not where it's going, okay? And which I'm going to tell you, where the puck's going. I've been telling people for years, private practice medicine is ending. People are either going to become employees, they're going to retire, or they're going to do a cash-based practice like I'm doing. And at first they thought I was nuts, and now we're seeing a big change. The numbers I have up here from the Physicians Foundation survey, 20,000 physicians they surveyed. Back in 2008, approximately 2/3 of doctors were private practice owners. 2014, it's only about 1/3. And that shift is mainly going to employment, okay? And it's kind of like out of the pot and into the, out of the frying pan into the fire. Okay, 38% were employees in 2008, now it's 53%. Now the bright spot there is, in 2008, less than 1% were third-party free practices. Now we're up to 7.2%. And in the survey, another 13.3% said they were thinking about doing the next few years. So we may have as many as 20% of doctors third-party free. Well, how did we do it? The first thing we did was, my partner and I tend to be, there he is, right back there, the guy with the gray beard, Jim Swallow. He should be giving this talk. He knows more about this than I do. In any event, we're very conservative lifestyle. We don't live high on the hog. And before we did this, I basically saved up a war chest. I decided, I'm going to do this, and if I don't bring a dime home, I'm going to be able to live off my savings and not have to change our lifestyle. And I saved up enough for about 2 years. And it turns out I didn't need any of the money, or not much of it. We also were very conservative fiscally at the office. We eliminated all the debt, tightened up office collection policies. We reduced our full-time employees. Before we did this, we had about 11 employees. Afterwards, we had 5. Okay? Which is 11 was pretty small for two neurologists to begin with. Also, you want to resist the urge to hire any new associates, because then you have another mouth to feed, so to speak. We assess the revenue based from each insurance based on their expenses, and basically about every 6 months we got rid of the most unfavorable one. And then we just kind of waited for things to build back up, and then repeated the whole process until basically we're done. Well, what happened? Every time we dropped an insurance, we saw some decline in patient visits, decline in revenue. It would slowly build back up, and then we'd do the whole thing again. At the end, what we found was there was some changes that are notable for a specialty practice like myself. Before we were on all the third-party payers, we got nothing but tertiary referrals, okay? Afterwards, the doctors stopped referring the patients in. And the reason is the patient would come in, they'd find out, oh, he's not on my insurance plan. And they'd call back the doctor that referred him and yell at him for sending to someone that's not on their plan. So eventually the doctors stopped referring. But what happened was the patients recognized we were doing good medicine and started referring their friends. And so now we basically have a patient-driven practice. And the internet really has been a boon to our practice because it spread beyond the confines of southern Louisiana. Everybody's interested in revenue. This is my revenue during this time period. I put my reference year as 2002, okay? We opted out of Medicare in 2001, both my partner and I. And if you notice, after we opted out of Medicare, revenue actually went up. The reason is because, one, the schedule got filled up with other patients, and two, a number of the Medicare patients kept coming and they paid us cash. And if you're actually getting paid for what you're doing, you don't have to do as much. We canceled our last contract, I said, in 2005. Okay, and as you notice, after that, you see a big drop in revenue. And it looks like we go from virtually 100% down to about 60-something%. So that's a huge decline in revenue over 2 years' time. Okay, remember, I saved up for 2 years. But the one thing that's not on this graph is, we started advertising after when we got down low. We started getting a little nervous. But one of the big things that was happening was overhead had progressively dropped. So even though our revenue was lower, it's not nearly as bad as it looks, okay? We started advertising in the bottom of it, and we didn't do a whole lot of advertising. What we did was we put a little tiny ad in the newspaper on Sundays, once a month in a few different cities in southern Louisiana, and it started picking up things. And as you can see, gradually, revenue started climbing significantly. And it's like it's sort of like starting a whole new practice, if you would. And then once you get through the first 3 lean years, it takes off. Well, the biggest accomplishment, however, is in 2011, I got my wife, who's a gynecologist, to finally go third-party free, because I couldn't convince her until then. And she's right over there, by the way. She does office gynecology, and she's been third-party free for 3 years. All right, the objections that I've heard from doctors, not patients. I've never had any patients really complain that much. But the doctors will say, oh, it's immoral to deny medical care to patients who can't pay. They'll say, the primary care doctor will say, if I do this, the patients are just going to go down the street to somebody who accepts their insurance. They also say, oh, well, you can do it because you're so specialized. Well, as you can see, we got a lot of primary care doctors here doing it. And then the specialists will say, oh, I can't do it because my surgeries and tests are too expensive and my patients can't afford it. Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about these. First of all, the whole immoral issue. No one is denied medical care. Bottom line, okay? You're just asking to be paid for your services. Now, if you really have someone who can't afford to pay you, there is Medicaid, and you can also do free care or discounted care. I have patients that I do free care for, and in particular, my long-standing patients that have been with me for a long time and they get on hard times, I will give them free services. I don't want to lose my patients. It is not immoral to deny medical care. It is immoral to deny emergent or life-threatening care. And that's where being a physician, I think, counts. Most medical treatments are not life-threatening. Most are quality of life issues. And it's a question of, does the patient want to pay for their medical care, or do they want to go to the casino down the street? The third-party payment system is the immoral system. Just to let you know how my practice runs, a patient calls on the telephone and they say, I'm here, I want to go see Dr. Gianoli for this, that, and the other thing. They tell the patient over the phone, before they even schedule it, this is what it's going to cost. And if they don't know, they'll give them a price range. This is the lowest it'll be, this is the highest it'll be. They know before they even schedule the appointment, okay? When they come, we expect to be paid at the time of the appointment. We give them a HCFA form, they submit to their insurance company, and they get reimbursed from their own insurance company. So we have no dealings with their insurance company at all, other than we fill out the HCFA form for them. Compare that to most medical practices where the patient calls, they have no clue what it's going to cost. They go see the doctor, they leave, they still don't know what it costs. The doctor doesn't know what it costs. 3 months later, they get an EOB and a big bill saying they owe a whole bunch of money, okay? That's the way most practices are. Which one's fair, would you say? In any event, I bring up Jesus Christ here, Matthew 6:24, no one can serve two masters. This, Andy, you could probably tell me, is this not the basis for conflict of interest law? You know, that's the definition of the third-party system. You've got two masters, and it's the definition of conflict of interest, okay? If you're an employee, you have a third master. Okay, so I just can't imagine being an employee in this situation. Why not to do third-party free medicine, okay? I only see one, to make more money. I mean, it's not a gold mine. I mean, I think you can make a nice living, but you can make more money in medicine. This is how you make more money in medicine. Sign up for every insurance plan and run the patients in and out like cattle. Do one of these medical mills. You'll make a ton of money. But will you be able to look at yourself in the mirror? I know I couldn't. All right, I talked a little bit about some of those objections. If I do it, they'll go see somebody down the street who takes their insurance. And my answer to that is, yeah, a lot of them will. Well, they obviously don't appreciate or value your care, and you do not want those patients in your practice. The only reason they're there is because you're on their plan. The ones who stay are the ones that actually value your services. And for those of you who haven't done it yet, you will be surprised who leaves and who stays. Some of the ones you think, oh, they're rich, they'll stay with me, they'll leave. Some of the ones you think are dirt poor, oh, they will be as loyal to you as you can imagine. New patients will also show up, and these are the patients who are the victims of cookbook medicine that is becoming so prominent now. And they're getting to be legion at this point. I'm told, oh, you can do it because you're so specialized. Well, first of all, I still have competition. Most third-party free doctors are primary care, as we talked about, and all physicians have value to offer to their patients. First of all, you can find a niche. I have my niche. Everybody has their niche. Time and counseling, that's the one thing that the third-party payment does not pay for. And interestingly, that little sign I have up there is from a patient of mine from Canada. It's a picture of a sign outside their primary care doctor's office, and it basically says, all visits are limited to 10 minutes and 2 questions. So if you can go beyond 10 minutes, you can charge for it. Also, this past week, the New York Times had an editorial that was entitled, "Doctor, Shut Up and Listen." Okay, has anybody read that one? It was interesting. Starts off with this patient who had tachycardia and feeling anxiety, had been to 6 different doctors. Finally, some doctor actually listened to the patient, found out they were on ephedrine trying to lose weight. Stopped the ephedrine, and guess what? Cured patient. And the bottom line is, I'll lay money, those 6 prior doctors had 3-page EMR notes that had ephedrine in it and everything, and they, that's where we're going. Everybody, you want to charge a reasonable value for your time as well. The service that is undervalued by the third-party system is the one that you're most likely going to make your living on. And that's what I'm going to talk to in a second. Why can I survive as a specialist? Because I'm a neurologist, which you think, oh, there's not many of us. There's only 200 board-certified neurologists in the country. But I can survive even though I'm the only one. Well, there's actually one other guy doing, otoneurology, Dr. Rob. The only other, and he's my hero too, because he started off without doing any third-party system at all. But besides him and I, there's no one who's taking care of vertigo and dizziness outside of the third-party system, okay? Think of it this way, okay? Vertigo is a complex inner ear disorder. It requires very specific training and expertise. It requires an extensive history and physical. It requires extensive testing. And it also requires extensive patient education and counseling, okay? The CPT code reimbursement for a vertigo evaluation is roughly about the same as if I took wax out of somebody's ear, okay? I'm going to spend an hour with a vertigo patient or spend 2 minutes taking wax out of somebody's ear, and they're equivalent in their reimbursement. There's no higher reimbursement because I have all this expertise and training. There's no reimbursement for education and training. And the testing, as we talked about before, they're reimbursing less than what it costs to do the tests. So what do my colleagues out there do? Well, a number of my neurology colleagues just simply don't take care of vertigo patients. They just tell the receptions, I know that sounds bizarre, but they tell the reception, the patient calls with vertigo, tell them we don't do that. Go see XYZ down the street. Some will see vertigo patients, but they will limit the number of vertigo patients. They'll say, okay, I'll see two a week. And so they get a backlog, and there's a 6-month or more waiting list. Then what they'll do is they'll delegate it to their nurse practitioner or PA or resident, okay? Now, nothing about so bad about the nurse practitioner or PA, but the week before that, they were the cardiology nurse practitioner. And the week before that, they were the general practitioner, nurse practitioner. They don't have the same expertise. They get a cookbook H&P, they get minimal or no testing, no patient education or counseling. Consequently, their experience with vertigo patients has gone down, and the results with these patients are extremely poor. So what do? We provide what is not provided. First of all, in our office, my partner and I have extensive experience and expertise in this area. We offer an evaluation and testing at a reasonable price. If you go to one of my competitors, the cash price for vestibular testing evaluation is in excess of $12,000. We do it for $4,000. And that's a very good price. They have access to me. I do all the education and counseling myself, and I spend the time with the patient. Consequently, we have excellent outcomes in a reasonable time frame. And our practice, as I said, is built upon patient referrals. The patients are happy with what they've gotten. They know what they've gotten elsewhere, and they say, look, you need to go over here. Okay? And I want to tell you about one patient I saw this week as I was getting this talk together. This guy was 75 years old. I saw him this week. 2 years ago, he started getting severe vertigo and dizziness, and he's fallen, and his son's worried he's going to break a hip and kill himself. Okay? He goes to a neurology practice and is there for a year and a half. During that year and a half, he sees the neurologist one time for 5 minutes, and the neurologist says, I'm not sure, I think you probably need surgery. And the man's like, look, I don't care, just fix me. He said, okay, we'll set you up for surgery. It's 6 months from now. All right? Took him 6 months to get into the clinic, in there for a year and a half, and now he's got surgery for 6 months later. So it's 2 years. He comes to see me, we get him scheduled within 2 weeks. Within a couple of days, we get him completely tested and ready to do whatever we need to do with him. I spent 2 hours with this guy. And he tells me, in the time I spent with him, that's combined everybody he's seen, the nurse practitioner, therapist, during the year and a half he'd been at the other clinic. He's delighted. I can't do it because my surgeries, tests, et cetera, are too expensive for my patients. They won't be able to afford me. Well, that is true only if you charge unreasonable prices. When we went third-party free, the first thing we did was we looked at our prices and we started adjusting things. First of all, I thought our office visits were undervalued. We raised the price on our office visits. However, surgeries I thought were overpriced. One of our, kind of basic surgeries, $5,000. We never got paid $5,000. The insurance companies pay us about $1,000. So we said, let's charge $2,500. That's a reasonable fee. It's not exorbitant, and that's what we went with. And it was a reasonable value. Some patients can afford, but they'll go elsewhere. And as I mentioned, you can do discounts in charity for some patients. What not to do if you're doing third-party free, don't add a partner. Don't take on too much overhead or too much debt. Don't run a separate office that accepts insurance. You're going to be competing, you're going to be cutting your knees out from under yourself. And don't practice medicine like everybody else and like usual. Because if you're going to practice like them, they might as well stick with the guy on their plan. One thing I just want to mention, negotiating cash price. A lot of people talked about cheap labs and imaging. We certainly have done those as well. But also, you can negotiate with your hospital. I've negotiated cash prices for skull-base craniotomies, ICU stays with the hospital. And right now, Medicare is publishing not just how much they pay all the hospitals, what the hospital charges, all your individual hospitals. You can get off their website. And roughly, it's 10 to 1, what they charge and what Medicare pays. Okay, so if they're charging, say $100,000, they're only getting paid $10,000, roughly. Okay, but in addition to that, I want to share with you my dad's experience. My dad went in for an angiogram and had 3 stents placed. He spent the night in the hospital, 23-hour stay. He got the bill from the hospital for $100,000. Okay, and he's just about having another heart attack. He's calling me, Jerry, I got to look at this bill. So I said, Dad, calm down. Your Medicare is not going to be. So I look at it, $99,000 in Medicare discounts. Okay, so they paid $1,000. Okay, let's think about this for a second. The cost of one of those stents was between $800 and $2,000. All right, and he got 3 of them, plus the night in the hospital. So the hospital lost money on him, okay? And which one is more crazy, the reimbursement or the bill itself? I mean, I'm looking at that, I'm thinking a reasonable price for that would probably be somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000, but it's crazy. I'm going to close with 2 quotes that I really like. The first is by an anonymous psychiatrist. Patients who don't pay don't get better. And I'm reminded of a patient I saw who came in and he had a problem. I don't remember what it was. And I told him, okay, you need to do X, Y, Z. He said, yes, sir, okay. And he leaves. Comes back a few months later, he's got the same problem. It's like, oh, okay, well, Did you do XYZ like we talked about? He said, oh, no, I didn't do that. Oh, well, you need to do XYZ. He leaves. Yes, sir, leaves. Comes back a few months later. Still got the same problem. Sir, did you do XYZ? No, I didn't do that. And I'm like, well, why do you keep coming back to me if you don't do what I tell you? He said, well, it's only a $5 copay, and I figure you might say something different. Okay. I don't have anybody like that in my practice anymore, because they're not going to pay their own money and not follow your advice. Last quote by an anonymous plastic surgeon. Patients who pay in advance for their surgery are always happier with their surgery. And I'm reminded of, I helped start a surgery center about 6 years ago, and we had a pain doctor there who had a cash pay patient. And he put a $28,000 pain stimulator in this patient without getting the money up front. And guess what? He didn't get paid, and he kept complaining about how hard it didn't work, and trust me, they're much happier when they pay in advance. And that's it for me. Thank you.